just gave there. Thank you. All right, Frank, and we continue here on Coffee and Conversation with our first guest of the day. He is with the Los Lunas Police Department. Lieutenant Charles Files is here, and he is also the New Mexico DRE Program Coordinator. Charles, good to see you. Thank you for
thanks
coming
for having
in.
me. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Appreciate you coming up to visit with us
Yeah,
here
absolutely.
in the city. I was asking you about the Los Lunas Police Department. How big is the force there?
We're about just a little over 40 from the chief down. So,
And we were
mid-size.
talking a little bit about the explosive growth that's happening in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
One main street.
One main street.
And it gets a little crowded.
Yeah. Between 4 and 6, you can't really get anywhere in that town. So,
what's your responsibility with the department?
so with the department, I oversee the patrol division on graveyard shift, K9 unit, and the DWI unit.
You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right. You're also the DRE Program Coordinator for the state. Now, what is DRE?
So DRE stands for Drug Recognition Expert. The program is designed to train law enforcement officers on signs and symptoms and impairment, basically, that they would see with a drug-impaired driver. Much different from alcohol. I think that's no secret that we do have an issue with impaired driving in New Mexico. But I'll tell you, it's not just limited to New Mexico. So this program is international. It's used in 5 different countries. It's used in all 50 states. We in New Mexico have been participating in it since 1992. So it's been around for quite a while.
All right.
And essentially, what we do is we have 2 different trainings that we offer law enforcement. One is a 2-day training just to kind of give them overviews of signs and symptoms associated with drug impairment that they may see if they pull somebody over who's under the influence. And the other is a DRE certification training, much longer, much more intense. It's a tough class to graduate from. We have an attrition rate and all that.
Yeah.
But once they get through it, they're considered. I mean, we put the word expert at the end of their title.
Yeah.
They should be an expert in the field of identifying what specific drug category somebody may be under the influence of.
When you pull somebody over for a violation of some kind, this is typically when you see the drug impairment when they're behind the wheel. Can you see it while they're driving, or does it happen more after you've pulled them over?
It's very situational. So somebody could be pulled over for, expired registration who's impaired and unsafe to drive a vehicle, at the same time. And I think the same goes for alcohol as well. At the same time, somebody could be pulled over because they're driving the wrong way down I-25. So it's very, very subjective. So, but the reason we have this training and the reason it's so important is because, with alcohol, it's a little easier to detect. You have the odor of alcohol, you have the slurred speech, the bloodshot, watery eyes, all that stuff. Somebody with drugs, the officer might be on the roadside with them and just thinking to themselves, like, something is not right with this person. So the whole point of our training is to try to, encourage them and show them, like, hey, look for this kind of stuff because this might be consistent with drug impairment.
I see. Do we have enough laws on the books to prosecute somebody that has a drug impairment behind the wheel?
It's tough. We have a little bit of work to do, I think. And
it's not considered as seriously as drunk driving, is what you're saying.
Well, it's the same statute.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. So, and it's a little more serious than driving in the bus lane in Albuquerque. It's the same statute, but it becomes a little more difficult to prove in court because with alcohol, it's, hey, you're at an 08, you're impaired. And that's tough to argue in court. We have science behind that says if you're at an 08, you're impaired. But look at drugs. We're talking about not just meth, heroin, the illicit drugs. We're talking about prescriptions, marijuana, Granted, I'm not gonna get political on you here, but I think we can all agree, no matter what your outlook or your opinion is on it, that it's going to be legal on a recreational level here very shortly.
Oh yeah, that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So now, how do you deal with that?
Right, and so that's where our guys come in. If somebody pulls somebody over who's they deem is impaired, then the DRE is going to come in, do their evaluation, and say, yeah, either this person was impaired, maybe it was a medical condition, whatever the case may be. But it's not like alcohol where you can just take a blood sample or a breath sample. It's not going to come up in a breath sample and say, okay, this level is consistent with impairment, because it's different for everybody, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
So you are so as the state coordinator for the DRE program, you have a ongoing set of classes where you certify people in this area. And you said it's been around a while, or is it
Yes.
a new thing?
So in New Mexico, it's been around since '92.
Oh, okay.
So it's been around for quite a bit. We have 81 certified drug recognition experts in the state of New Mexico, and we hold one school a year, typically around 15, 20 students. It has an attrition rate, and we lose DREs every year to retirement, promotions,
Sure.
whatever the case may be. So we stay kind of stagnant around that number for the most part. My goal, let's get it at least to 100. I mean, we need more. My short-term goal is let's get to 100, and then let's expand it as much as we can.
Yeah, because the numbers it doesn't sound like a lot.
Right.
It doesn't sound like a lot of police officers are getting this training.
Right. So, and that's where the D.R.E comes in, the 2-day training, and that we put that on all over the state. And that's, it's not a certification training, but it's the training to give them the awareness of, okay, this person's not right. This might be a drug impaired driving case that I need to investigate further.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff, and I think it takes a keen eye and some real good instincts to spot these impaired drivers. It really does.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Like I said, with alcohol and officers, when they go through the basic police academy, they get a minimum of 24, a maximum of 40 hours in impaired driving. But for the most part, it's kind of focused on alcohol, and so the drug impairment is its own entity.
Yeah. I'm just about to ask you that. Why isn't this normal part of training when you become an officer, when you just come out of the academy?
Because what drugs do to the human body is so much more complex than Albuquerque. And in this D.R.E school that we were talking about, I mean, we go over physiology. Essentially we cram probably a semester's worth of information in 2 weeks in a classroom.
It's like a mini medical school here, isn't it?
Somewhat, because there is a lot of impaired driving enforcement is subjective for the most part.
Sure.
And that makes it difficult for a law enforcement officer because it's the only statute that I know of on the books, and somebody out there might be able to correct me, but the arrest decision is based on the officer's opinion that the person is impaired.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, for anything else, if somebody has drugs on them, then it's a possession case. It's pretty cut and dry.
Right. Sure.
But we're talking about an officer on the side of the road that's looking at this person, going through these tests and saying, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're impaired and make the arrest. So it's a very subjective, tricky situation that we're dealing with out there. So it's tough for law enforcement. Well,
I'm glad the training is there. When does the school... You said it happens once a year. When's the next one?
So, yes, we just graduated our 15 new DREs, and we did that school in Farmington, and they completed the third of their 3 phases of training July 19th. So they're done. So what we're gonna focus on now is the D.R.E, the 2-day classes. We'll do about 18 of them in the next year, all over the state. And then the next school will be held in Las Cruces, and we have not finalized the dates for that, but it's looking like March or April 2020.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
On top of your normal work, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's well worth it.
Well, I'm glad to meet you, and I'm glad to know this is going on. It
Absolutely.
just makes everybody safer.
Absolutely.
That's what it's
the goal.
about.
That's the
goal. That's
goal.
the whole idea, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Well, anytime you want to come up and promote the police department, come on down.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Please do. We'll fill your coffee cup and.
Yeah, you did twice already. So thank
good.
you.
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Lieutenant Charles Files with the Los Lunas Police Department. He is the New Mexico DRE Program Coordinator. And we'll continue here on Coffee and Conversation in just a moment.
God's Warehouse has been helping the less fortunate since 2012 with